Hello, everyone. My name is Rafal, and I would like to welcome everyone to my Headshot and Portrait Headshot Photography podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Marcin Rafalowicz. I'm going to say it in Polish because we both from Poland. That's our background, and we can say it properly. We have a very short discussion right before about how to properly say the names, but I decided we're going to go with the full Polish pronunciation. Um, Marcin is amazing photographer. He's also podcaster. I just want to say thank you because, as you probably noticed, I was on his podcast recently. We had fantastic conversation, and I've decided that I'm going to invite him back, and we're going to continue our conversation about what's happening in photography world, how is transforming, how is changing. Everything what it's happening these days is overwhelming for many people, including myself. And I think Marcin also interviews so many amazing photographers, so he has also like a much broader perspective on what other photographers do, what they think, how they approach the new reality. So Marcin, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks, Rafa. Thanks for a couple things. Actually, hold on. First, you called me a phenomenal photographer or a fantastic photographer. I don't know. I'll take either one. That's kind of cool. Second, I don't get to hear my last name, especially being pronounced the right way. So that's kind of cool. And yes, I'm a little petrified because last time we got together, I think it was like 2 hours of just nonstop photography, business, life philosophy. So I don't know how long we're going to be here for, but let's do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that means we had a lot of to share. That's some
Yeah, yeah.
things that if when two people I think meet in this from the same industry and they're both passionate about what we do, well, the conversation always is kind of much longer than we originally planned. So that's great, and that was one of the reasons I also decided to have you back, because the conversation was pretty amazing. And then when you feel that vibe, you feel that kind of connection, it's always good to kind of expand this even more. So before we jump into some heavy duty questions, why don't we start, and if you could share just a little bit about how did you get into photography in general. Like, we talk a little bit prior to the podcast about it, but I want to dive a little bit more deeper. And the reason I'm asking about it is the fact that most people I interviewed throughout my kind of podcast history, everyone has some kind of interesting story how they got into photography. There's not kind of one ways getting into it. People coming from different industries, they're coming from kind of different also time of their life. They're, sometimes they start early, sometimes they start later on. Sometimes they getting into in the middle of some kind of storm, and they decided to change their career, and they decided to kind of jump into photography. So tell me your story. How did you get into photography, and what was your motivation behind it?
That's I sort of got into photography sideways. And I say it because I sometimes feel like an unwanted child of photography world. The reason for that is a lot of photographers I interview, I always hear those like fantastic stories, and they're usually creative, and there's like they usually have been shooting since they were like 12 years old on grandfather's cameras. For me, it was a little different. My main driver, believe it or not, I always, when I work with my students, I always say it's okay to say that it's money, because it was simply money. And what happened was, I actually entered the game pretty late. I think I was 29, just about to turn 30. And believe it or not, we were planning, when I say we, me and my wife, Joanna, we were planning a wedding. And one of the responsibilities that sort of landed in my lap was, finding the photographer for the wedding. Typically, it lands in like groom's lap. I don't know, for whatever reason. But I started scrolling through different photographers' websites, and my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I was always okay with technology, just in general. Never afraid of touching technology, playing with technology. And cameras was just one of those things. I don't know if you remember back back around that time, 2005. I think
Hmm.
like a Nikon Coolpix, one of those cameras that you like used to twist around,
Yes.
kind of funky one. So I was playing with that one. There was a camera at the moment, and I started going through the websites. I was looking at prices. I'm like, holy crap! Like you can actually like I didn't. It was one of those like unknown unknowns. Like there's things that you know exist, and,
Hmm.
but you know little about those things. But like sometimes there are things that you don't even know are out there, right? Available for you. So my brain went from like wedding planning to like, how do I monetize this thing that I know how to do? And that was really it. And I got to tell you, at that time, I was always involved in the corporate world, and always something visual. At the time when I was looking at those websites, I was actually working for one of the, like the big insurance companies in Connecticut, because that's where I was at the time, and I was doing some website work for them, some content work, very minimal back then. It was not nothing significant, but that barrier of like, well, I can put together like a something a minute like a website or something like a one pager. I can definitely put it together. I can print a business card, like, and I just started questioning myself, like, what would it take? And literally, first instinct was to go to what's the Craigslist, the
Hmm.
website that existed. I'm not sure if it still exists, but if it does, it's worth trying for somebody that's starting. And I went and basically said, "Hey, I'm here. I have a camera. I'm willing to do some stuff for you." And
Hmm.
I pulled a gallery of photos, just from the past, things I did for like family or whatever. And for whatever reason, I know a lot of photographers kind of have a tough choice deciding which genre to go after.
Hmm.
For me, for some reason, it was like, I just want to do weddings. If this is what it is, if this is what it takes, and this is what I can charge, might as well do weddings. So that was really it. And I got to tell you, that one post turned into first wedding or two. I did two freebies. That
Hmm.
that one turned into, I think first one was maybe 800, and I'm like, all right, let's push forward, right? And then switch to like 1400, and the rest is history, really, because it's just because of the volume. I went from first year only having maybe four, the two freebies, and
Hmm.
probably two or three more like paid. I took that and turned it into like like a fully fledged website that was a lot
Hmm.
nicer, where I could capture leads, and that was really it. And the following year, I think we were at 16, and then 20 something, and then I think we did 41 weddings at one time. Remember, this is not doing this full time. This is
Hmm.
this being a side gig. So yeah, and for a very long time, long answer, but I really struggled with calling myself a photographer because my identity was somewhere else.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, took a couple of years to call myself a photographer, but then yeah, 18 years later, it was, I'm kind of very happy where we kind of landed with this adventure.
Mhm. Absolutely. You know what? It's interesting because we didn't talk about it last time because when you share that story,
Yeah.
I've gone through the same scenario. Like I
Uh-huh.
want, but I want to do photography, so that was like a little bit of different
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I landed like couple free weddings one
Uh-huh.
year, and actually that was for people I work with, and they were getting married. And when they told me like, "Hey, we're getting married,"
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Can I do your wedding? Like, I'll do it for free. Just let me do it." And that was like back in the days where we still have film. Just to imagine like
Yeah. Yeah.
how big of a
Yeah.
difference that was.
Yeah.
And I shot that, and then the following year, I actually from again two free weddings, I turned into like 30 something weddings
Mhm. Mhm.
the following season.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it was kind of interesting because when you said 2005,
Mhm.
that was the time where this whole thing kind of switched from film to digital, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like this I actually got into this like in the moment of that transition where there was no more about few pictures from the wedding turn
Yeah.
into a whole this photojournalistic style where you was like unlimited amount of images you could take.
Mhm.
And that was like I remember for me at least was a massive like the selling point that like it's no more like few weddings. I'm gonna come in for the whole day and I'm gonna shoot every little thing, and that was like people were really captured by that. And the same thing, like for the next 10 years, I turned into like total business. So that's similar. But you know what I think, so let's kind of dive in a little bit more into this, because that's something that I want to explore, because
Mhm.
weddings, as you probably know really well, like prepare you for any type of photography. And what I mean by that is like a lot of
Yes.
stress, a lot of tension, a lot of solving problems right on the spot, dealing with people, selling, marketing, crazy brides, crazy family. I think after that, you can do like literally anything, right? Like it's really prepare you, and not only for any type of photography business, but for life. Like the solving problems part, I remember, well, tons of stories. I'm sure you could share a lot of them too. But I remember, like you had to be on your toes pretty much for an entire day.
Yes. So was it the most scary thing? I have two daughters. I have a 13-year-old and 15-year-old. I think that's
Okay.
scarier. But in terms of weddings, man, there's a lot to unpack, because you like mentioned marketing
Yeah.
and logistics of the wedding. So where do we want to like start? Do we want to talk about the like
Let's
the
go into the business part, because I know people are, the technicalities. I think we've gone for this, but let's kind of talk a little bit about the business part, because I
we
think that's what I've learned a lot. And I
yeah
think this is something what a lot of people struggle with. And it doesn't matter what type of photography you do, right? Because
yeah
the technical skills you learn through the process.
yeah
But I know a lot of people giving up quickly because they cannot manage the financial side of it.
yeah
And I can even share one story. I remember one of the clients I had, and we've met,
Mhm.
and they drove this, like we met in some kind of coffee shop, whatever, for a meeting, and they just came in with this like brand new Lexus or something, and I'm just like, how the hell I'm gonna charge them, right? Like like you have this like, okay, there's no stable prices, I think, especially when you're starting. Like you try to figure it out,
yeah
how much you're gonna charge. And I remember she asked me, so what's how much you charge? And I was so lost in my head. I said, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, well, I'm trying to like figure it out. And you know what? I lost that client. They're like, okay, if you don't know, like, I don't want to get into some kind of situation that, you're telling me one thing one day, and they left.
yeah
And then I had actually meeting with some lawyer who actually prepared me a contract. And
uh
he taught me a little bit about the pricing. He's like, you know what, this is the one thing, when it comes to this type of services, like
mhm.
when you meet the client, like you have to know the numbers, and doesn't matter what it is, it's too low or it's too high, doesn't matter, you have to be kind of confident about it. So tell me your experience about the business side of dealing with your wedding clients.
Yeah. So the business part of it, you guys can probably can you hear my dog going
A
nuts in the
little bit.
back?
Yeah, that's okay. He
Okay,
wants to he wants to be part of it too, I guess.
that's right. He wants to make a mark. So let's talk about pricing. But before even pricing, I got to tell
Yeah.
you, there's uh, w- I don't know if I shared this with you on the podcast last time when we talked, but I'm actually in the process. I finished draft one of a book that I'm working on,
Hmm.
and the primary focus of the book is exactly what you are asking right now. So
Hmm.
there's this invisible, I call it like invisible game, but
Hmm.
it's really part of that invisible game is, pricing, it's brand, it's automation, it's doing everything but photography to make
Yes.
to make the business work, right?
Hmm.
So everybody can kind of like, I noticed that, and I was in the same spot when I started. I was absolutely clueless. I had no coach. I had no friend that did photography.
Hmm.
I had access to internet, and and that was really it, right? I didn't know like you had an option of going to conferences to connect with people. None of that. So blank slate. And I noticed, for me, this is true for me and for everybody I work with. It's they copy what they see. So they go to somebody's website, they can copy the website. They go to see the logo, they copy the logo. They create a business card. What else they can copy? They copy packages. And
Hmm.
sometimes if they if they run across like pricing information, they copy pricing information. I did the same, right? And at the very beginning, obviously, it's the mental game of not being good enough, right? So this imposter syndrome, like, can I charge this much? Like, I started free, then jumped to the 800 and 1400, whatever. But the thing is, it was at the beginning, I always played this game fair with the client. So when I wanted to do it for free, I said, listen, I don't have a portfolio, never did a wedding. Are you okay with that? And they were okay with that. When I wanted to charge money, I said, I want to charge 500. Are you cool with that? I have those 2 free weddings. And they were okay with that. When I switched to 14, the same story. When I switched to 2400, same story. Now, funny enough, when now I think of it retrospectively because I'm standing where I'm standing, looking, I'm looking through the lens of 18 years of experience, but I think it's worth mentioning to somebody that's starting, or maybe you struggle with pricing. I remember I hired a coach at one point, and I was so thrilled because he asked me about my conversion rates, which is basically like from the clients that come in through the door, how many do you actually convert to being your clients, right? To the paying client. And I was so thrilled, and I said, probably like 97%. And I remember expression on his face, and it didn't look like a positive one. He said, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just like, he broke my brain because I said, what am I like why did I hire you for? Right.
Yeah.
He said, your conversion rate, like you should be saying no to like 60 or 70% of your clients. I'm like, dude, you're insane. Like, I mean, where would I make money? And there's this whole concept of like 20% of the clients bringing in 80% of your revenue. Right. So, and a lot of folks listening to this, like, hold on, what the numbers, what is he talking about? What I'm saying is that you kind of have to be intentional about what you do, understanding where you are. So, I'll tell you most recent example. One of my students, she's doing mini sessions, and she's working with, she's photographing newborns. No problem. She started photographing. She started with like 5, and then 10, and then 80, and I'm just jumping forward. Then 120. She's at the point where she's photographing 500. I don't remember what the exact number is. 514 sessions a year. And it just sounds like a number, but when you take out the calculator and you start dividing like how many sessions she does a month or every week, I'm like, holy crap, this is just insane. Like, so can you go that route? Sure, but you have to understand you're gonna have to work your ass off. Is it okay if we swear on your podcast? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes I get so passionate about it, and I speak from the heart, so no harm intended. But the thing is, you just have to understand, like, is this doable? Is this a working model? It is a working model. Is it a sustainable model? Like, for a long term, depending on where you are. Like, if you're in a position where like you have to make money and that's the only way to do it, then sure, do it. But back to this guy recommending it, it's like you always have to check periodically. You have to check with yourself, like, where's the price? Where's my work? How many clients are coming in? And if there's constant demand, it's a demand supply. If there's too many people asking for you, it's probably a good idea to ask, hey, can I elevate my price to manage my workload? Otherwise, I'm going to be working like an ass for very little money. So, and I know a lot of folks are stuck there because they're like, they keep anticipating, like, when is the moment to change? Just look at the inflow. If you have a lot of people coming in asking, a lot of requests, look at your calendar, schedule your family time. If you're working, your work time, your regular job time, schedule your family time, schedule your vacation time. How much time do you have left? And then work backwards. It's like, I can only do 20 sessions a year, right? And if it's 20 sessions, but my goal is $10,000, maybe charge 5,000. And I know some folks will find it super difficult to even say 5,000, but it's like, okay, well, start lower, but like increase it. Don't mimic the guy. Don't copy the guy next door where he's charging $75 for mini sessions, because it's like, it's going to be super hard for you to get out of the bracket. And I know that through my experience, because I got to tell you, I was working that price up for weddings, and got to about 4,500 per wedding,
Mhm.
and had three different instances. Twice with one with mother of the bride, one with father of the bride, and one with just the bride and groom, where I quoted the price. And this one example with the father, he heard so they got to my office. At that time I had an office. You don't have to have one, by the way, but like I had an office. They came in, sat down, I did the quick presentation, and he's like, okay, well, before we get going, I just like need to level set, like, what do you charge, like what's your average? I'm like, well, for like a all day coverage, 40, I think it was 46 to be exact. And he's like, okay, we're leaving. And he literally got up and like was on his way out. And the only thing, like the only opportunity, the only question I could squeeze in, I'm like, hey, hold on. Okay, that's fine. You guys can take off and whatever it is. But like, can you please, like, can I have some insight into, like, we just saw like a 20-second demo, and you're literally like leaving. So like, would you just entertain me and tell me like why? He's like, well, that's obviously too cheap. My daughter can't have somebody that's that's offering packages at $4,000. Again, my whole mindset, I'm like, Jesus. And it happened two more times. And then that's why I started hiring coaches and trainers, because I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I thought it was like there's like a progression. But what I found out and learned was that you actually get to a point where you hit a wall, and you get to, let's say, $4,000, 45, and people don't go to 5. Like from 4, they may go to 7 or 8, depending on where you are. And this is something that we need to understand. I remember back in maybe 2008 or 2009, I was at like a little photography meetup, and somebody mentioned this photographer. And I remember they said he was making $52K per wedding. You hit those walls. Like, what did you like?
Yeah.
Feels like another dimension, right? I'm like, what? And then I went and actually validated it, and I think it's true today, where there are photographers probably charging 80,000 up to 100,000. It's like it's a different market. It's a different client.
Different market. Yeah.
It's like different things, right?
If I can add something to this, and again, that comes from the experience, because you touched some like really interesting points, and I want to expand on those. One, I think that one of the biggest kind of like mistakes photographers do, especially, well, that applies, I think, for any type of photography you are in, is the fact that if you have certain prices, those are type of clientele you bringing in, right? Because if you say charging $5,000 for a wedding, and you, let's say, charging for a year, or I don't know, a couple seasons, those the clients they're gonna be coming in, right? You're not gonna, because people talk about prices, right? Especially in the wedding industry, and even in the headshot photography, kind of the same thing. They ask, how much did you pay for it, right? Like, what was the price? And especially, like, this industry is really well known for, like, word of mouth. So before the clients comes from the recommendation, they already know the price, right?
Yeah.
That's the one point. And then I remember I had a hard time too, right? Because like, when you kind of hit that wall, and then you bring in these clients, and you just significantly increase the price, they're like shocked or something, right? Like, oh, you did my friend wedding for that amount of money. I had that story constantly, kind of list. People are telling me like, oh, but I'm like, yeah, that was last year. This is new season. It's more. And the second thing is, which also I've been struggling a lot. And I know, like, if you have some kind of, I don't know, business background, and then, I don't know, you've been trained, or you have coaches who can kind of guide you through, they can teach you that, prices, it, like, I'm not saying just a number, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we feel, at least that was my experience, I felt guilty, like, what I mean is, like, if I told that price, it's just like, holy shit, like, how could I even say that much money? Like, I felt guilty, like I'm ripping them off or something like this. And that was this like really weird feeling. And I think it's coming from the background, right? Because like, I was born and raised in
Totally.
Poland, where like, everyone was just like, looking, God forbid you're gonna screw someone over. Yeah, exactly. We were from the same background. And there's no this kind of like a business mentality there, right? Like we're living during the communism, so there's completely kind of different ways of dealing with stuff. But I remember for a very long time I had a really hard time to increase the prices, because this kind of inside guilt of
Mhm.
charging people more was like literally holding me up to kind of like overcome some of those, as you said, walls. I think this is like the perfect description how we feel to kind of overcome those stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and there's, like you mentioned, the business aspect and the pricing. You have to understand that your price charging is one thing, right? That imposter, that like hesitation. A lot of times, it's like I always translate everything to basic emotions. So it's almost like fear and shame and not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's more to pricing, right? So pricing, you have to understand that you kind of have to be intentional with pricing, and you will probably hear different models on how to price. So for somebody's like,
Mhm.
how would I structure this? It's like, I always think of it, and my simplistic model is like have three levels, right? One, like an entry level that's close to the middle one. The middle one is the one that you always want to sell.
Yeah.
And the highest one, which is probably not something you're going to sell a lot. I always say it has to be something that almost like cracks a smile when you say it, right? Like
Mhm.
you almost don't want to believe that this is this is gonna
This is
happen.
yeah.
10% of the people will actually go that route. But what that's doing is it's psychologically anchoring people against like, whoa. Like if you tell somebody, if you start high, and then you go down, it sounds like a deal. It sounds like, like they don't maybe need all that fluff.
Mhm.
But it's definitely anchoring people against it, so that when you say, let's say you want to sell your package for 3,500, let's just be lower, right? For most of the folks listening, and it's like, quote them a package that's doable, but it costs 6 or 7 or 8,000, and
Mhm.
saying, hey, here's what's included, right? And then if, hey, maybe you don't need all that fluff, and like we can actually do all their coverage for 3,500, and it's so much easier because they're now comparing. It's not the first thing price tag that they see. They're comparing that price to the price that you just served. So it's like, oh, well, yeah, we don't need that much. But like that photographer must be good because they're charging 6 or 7 grand. Like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
3,500 is almost like a steal. It's all
Yeah.
psychological. It's all psychological game, right? And then the
Absolutely.
lowest
Yeah.
package has to be. It's almost like a starting package to attract maybe the clients, because I think of clients on like a spectrum, right? Like
Mhm.
you don't go for any client, but you have a definition of your lower end client and your high end client. The high end client, you quote the 7 to 6,000 or whatever. Your average client is the one in the middle, and maybe the lowest you'll go is, I don't know, $1,200. And it's like,
Mhm.
just create the package that's there, but almost to the point where like it doesn't make sense to buy the $1,200 package.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should be upgrading to 35, or have it closer, $2,600 versus $3,400. Like,
Yeah.
for a full day with an album or something, whatever. I'm just talking,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be stuck in wedding world. So I apologize
Yeah.
for that.
No, no, no. Like, you know what? I think we can, because I apply the same
Yeah.
rules to my
Right.
headset photography, right? So, but
Right.
that's again, I learned this from wedding industry, right?
Yeah.
And another thing, what I want to add to this for people who are listening, because that's another kind of interesting thing and kind of irony to this whole kind of concept of pricing and packages and all this stuff.
Mhm.
The more people pay, I found, this is actually my experience, the less demanding they were, in my opinion. And it was like, I well, one of my most expensive, weddings, I charged was about 10 grand. And I remember, like, there was no issues with these people, like no issues. And they were like easygoing, like it's like, it was completely different dynamic. And I was just like, maybe not shocked, but I think also that a lot of photographers put that in their head that, if you charge like so much, the
Mhm.
client's going to be difficult. And it actually is opposite. Like the less you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you charge, the worse they are,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying the worse as a, like, it's more demanding. And then, like, they want to stuff for free, they put already like low price on you. So like they're going to just try to squeeze everything out of you. This is like another thing which a lot of photographers, they have to go through that process to see that, and it's kind of shocking. At
Mhm.
least for me, it was a kind of like, I'm like what's going on here, right? Because you have this like clients who pay so much, and they like so easy to work with, and then you have those cheap clients who like shouldn't have any demands because you gave them such a good deal, and they just coming back, and then they want this, they want that, they want to like free add-ons, and then spend some extra time and do like like it's just crazy, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting, and this, I think we're going to touch on some interesting point, that we have this kind of like that this myths in our head about how this whole thing works, and we have to like literally break this apart and start think differently to kind of understand this whole thing a little bit better.
I don't know if I want to drag the price, but I'll add one more thing. What the hell? The the thing is, because we think in a very linear terms, that it's that client that comes in and is focused on price.
Yeah.
It's like they pay with their life. What I mean by that is they pay with their time. They
Yeah.
When they think of money, they think of like, if I pay $1,000, this cost me almost 2 weeks of my paychecks or whatever that whatever it is. And so they are very, very careful in terms of who they choose, or what not who they choose, but like what they get for that money that they have allocated. That's why we always hear the word budget a lot. My budget is whatever it is. When the other clients come in, they usually look at it. There's never a problem with price for people, because if I said, hey, Rafa, I'm getting, this is going to be an extreme example, but like, let's say I say I'm getting divorced and I have a Ferrari in my garage and I need to get rid of it like this week, and I'll sell it to you for 35 grand, even though you're not planning on buying a Ferrari. Like, you probably will scratch your head and like, holy crap, even if I don't drive it, even if it's 35, even if I don't need it, I need to get this thing so I can sell it, so I can make another 100,000 on top of it. So it's not the price. Like, even though you're not in the market for Ferrari, like you would still given that it's a serious thing, you would still probably consider it. And the same thing here, like, when clients come in, the other type of client, when they come in, they don't look at the price anymore. They look at the value. Like, what is it they are purchasing? And I'll give you an example. I was in the kitchen the other day because my daughters are they were taking karate classes, and it took 5 years, and finally they got their black belts. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I had pictures of them wearing yellow belts on the wall next to the kitchen where everybody can see whoever's coming into our house. And I said, okay, well, let's take down the pictures and let's put the uniforms with the black belts, because it's like a huge deal for you guys. And they looked at me kind of, I saw like the face, they just deflated suddenly. And they're like, Dad, like, can we leave it on there? We like to see our, like, so like, and my brain just immediately switched. So it's not for them, those images, the stuff on the wall, even though it was imperfect and I didn't really put any value to it and like at that point, to them, it's like being recognized, being seen, right? And I always say that with like senior photographers, right? That's what you're selling. You're not selling a $160 package. You're selling that memory to your kid, because once you hang it on the wall, every mom that comes by will brag about it. Like, folks are always looking for like increasing their status, their social status. So it's like, you hang that picture on a wall, everybody that comes in will be like jealous about it, right? So like, mention that your kid will be in, like, in the on cloud 9, because it's like they're recognized, and it's something that it's like a testament. It's a proof of love, let's call it, right? But like, it's important. Sometimes we sell the wrong story. Like, we try to justify with options and like, here's my price, here are the options, and put that aside and tell them a story, like what it means. And it's easier for clients to then see the higher value and like, well, if like my kid will see me in that, sort of from that angle, if other people are going to come in and like, it's going to be a topic of discussion, now suddenly it's not $160 or $400 or $1,000. It's like I mean, maybe not prices, but definitely worth the money
Yeah.
of the sofa for 4K. That's doing the same exact thing. People come in, they use it, they sit down, they talk about your furniture and how nice and whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like being that ability of being able to tell a story. I think is very
Yeah.
important.
Speaking on those pictures you said on the wall, actually had this story a month ago, which is also kind of like is going to touch on this, which is fascinating.
Mhm.
So actually, those are my wedding clients, but I do some other work with them, like the family photos, the headshots for their work. They're running some businesses and stuff. And actually, they got a new house,
Mhm.
and they invited me to come in because we have some discussion about some like upcoming projects. And I walked in, and the wedding photos like literally everywhere, like big, small, like you
There
name
you
it,
go.
like every picture which
Yeah.
the possibly I took, there's like every room has
Yeah.
some of them, right? And what was fascinating for me was like this strange feeling, because I remember like those pictures, what I was taking, what I was doing, like it's just kind of your memories, like even for me,
Yeah.
came back, right? Like when I was because we've done so many weddings that you don't remember maybe everything, but when you look at them, like it's yours, right? Like this is part of you. And so we had this discussion. I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm like, that's interesting. You guys have those wedding photos like everywhere, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like one of the best day of our lives. We put so much money into this, and then
Yeah.
it's like we want to remember every day we wake up before we go to sleep. We kind of look at them, and I never thought about this kind of like how much value that
Yeah. Exactly.
that can have for them.
Exactly.
And then it's fascinating that sometimes we don't realize doing this for the clients, where they're going to take it and how important that is. Another thing what I want to add to this, and I think that's going to be also kind of really interesting addition. I had a lot of my wedding clients who passed away, believe it or not. Like that's the
Mm.
kind of the time I'm getting in where the people starting like passing away. And I had this like recently also story that one of my clients, he passed away from cancer. And during the funeral, I did like a close up of him when he was waiting for his bride, and they used that photo on his funeral, right? And and then his wife told me, like, I had to use that photo. I love him. He's like, he's gonna be waiting for me. And like she started adding all this meaning to it, which I was like never even thought about it, right?
Mm.
And then I think headshots is a completely different story, but I think weddings, um people put so much work into this. They plan it, they organize it, they spend tons of money into this. And those images really, like, it's everything, because this is only one thing which is left after the wedding,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to remember what they ate, what they've done that day, the pictures they capture, all of it. And they, like, just the essence of the stuff, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of photographers don't even realize how much emotions, how much value, how much stuff we do for these people. This is what I said, like it's priceless, because you cannot, 20 years from the wedding, you cannot put price on those images, right? Especially if someone is gone, or things kind of go different ways. This is the only memories those people have. So it's this is for people who listening to this. Just remember, just because you think it's nothing, or like it doesn't mean much, for those people sometimes has, with the time, has so much meaning. People don't even realize how much.
Yeah. Focus on emotion.
Yes.
This is how we buy human body. And I say it, I should probably set up foundation for this, because I mentioned corporate, but like the job that I do, but in a way I'm a combination of like a behavioralist psychologist. That's
Mhm.
part of what I do as part of the product. And very often when we talk about product, which in this case your photos are your product, your service is your product, you have to focus on emotions. And I'll give an example. I was eating breakfast this morning outside, looking at, they had a Sea-Doo, the water jet ski
Mhm.
commercial. And out of that commercial, it was like a 30-second commercial. I think I saw the Sea-Doo twice for about 3 seconds total.
Mhm.
The rest of it was mom smiling, somebody grilling, kids jumping in the water,
Yeah.
waves, water, sunsets. everything but the see-do, right? And that's a good analogy to take in when you're selling your photography, because it's like, we think as human beings, and this is evolutionary biology, we're diving deep, but let's go.
Yeah.
We think we have two systems. We have the frontal cortex in our brain, and we have the limbic system, which is emotional. And unfortunately for us, the limbic system kicks in first, right?
Mhm.
It's all the emotions, whether happy, pissed, or whatever, and then we process logically. So, and you can see examples of this all the time, because you get pissed and then you go in the corner, sit there quietly, and you probably have realization like,
Yeah.
that was not good. you know
Exactly.
so this is an example of this, and
Yeah.
this is exactly how clients, when they come in, that's how they think. That's why we do presentations for them, right? That's
Yes.
why we show them bigger albums, because we're
Yes.
trying to elevate them emotionally first. This way the logic kind of goes second.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good thing to know when you're pricing
Yeah.
or talking about your services.
Yeah, I want to add something to this because like I've shared that on like other podcasts, and this is one of and exactly what you just said. I'm gonna just talk about this practical side of it, right? Because I think a lot of people want to know. So what I used to do. I remember when I was selling my weddings, I was really carefully watching people when they were like looking at my albums and
Yeah.
which images trigger them, and then I was just pulling them out, and that's how I was building my presentation. And what was fascinating for me, which kind of was like blows my mind, and this is exactly what you just said about like how that you can kind of like tap into someone's emotions.
Mhm.
I could have a client who could just pick you based on one image. Like
Mm.
they saw some like unique image from one of your weddings, which is completely out of context, or was like, taken accidentally. I don't know, mom is crying or dad is crying, and it's like, it creates this like emotional kind of boost. And then all of a sudden, their emotions are taking over. It's like, yeah, we want to hire you, right? And because they like, they and I could see it. They saw the image, and in that moment, that instant, they made the decision. And
Yeah.
as you said, there's nothing logical. There's nothing like, I want to see your full kind of like wedding story, your full wedding coverage. They saw one image which could trigger them, and I was like picking those shots
Yeah.
through all my kind of work, and then I was like putting presentations where like every image was this kind of like emotional trigger. And then after like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes watching those images, like they were hooked. Like, guys were usually more careful, but women, like, if you see tears, looking at someone else's wedding,
It's a good sign.
it's like yeah, it's like you just watching it, like, yeah, we're done here. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
deal is just bring me the contract, the sign it, give
Yeah.
me the deposit, you guys, good to go. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so you know what? Why don't we switch the gears?
Sure.
And so I think that's going to be a lot of interesting things for people to think about their pricing and how they kind of like can look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of like jump into completely different topic, and I want to talk a little bit about um, the podcasts, right?
Okay.
Because for me, podcasts are extremely fascinating as a photographer. Seeing others people perspectives, knowing them closer. I can share that I have some guests which I didn't like for some time because I felt like a competition. I felt like
Mm.
um I don't want to say like a enemy is a big word. Like, I don't want to say it. I don't want to go that far. But you have this kind of jealousy, right? Like they achieved something and you would like, I would like to be like them. I don't know how to get there, whatever. And then when you talk to them on the podcast, and I was like picking them up, kind of constantly because I want them know them better. And
Mhm.
they becoming like your friends, they becoming like your kind of like, people who want to share with you informations, and they kind of guide you through. Tell me your experience. How even did you got into podcasts? And also like, if you could share some of your experiences, talking to people. Because for me also, like every conversation just like opens my mind. Like, what, everyone has a different perspective, and then like you start shifting, like, hey, what, why I never thought about it, or kind of like, this is great idea, like, oh my god, this is cool.
Yeah.
I found fascinating, and then I love talking to other photographers because it's everyone has kind of own story, everyone is fascinating, everyone has this kind of like own personality, which adds something very unique to what they do. And you can really see this through even the conversation. So tell me a little bit, how did you even got into this?
Oh
And then,
man,
like let's share some of those stories.
holy shit. So let's start. Maybe with indoctrination. What do I mean by
Okay.
that? In school, in elementary school, we're like indoctrinated, programmed to just work on your own, don't share, don't do whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're being judged on just what you do. You can't work in groups.
Yeah.
It's just individual performance, right? And
Yeah.
you go, I don't know how many goddamn years thinking that this is the way to work.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I continued working in that mode for a very long time. Even after starting photography, everybody was competition.
Mhm.
And when somebody told me networking, I didn't even know the word. Like my brain couldn't construct it so that it's anyway helpful. It was just another like show up and do a performance of some sorts. I don't know, whatever. But the thing is, it was just foreign. I thought
Mhm.
everybody's out there to get me. I couldn't share my secrets, and it's just mind blowing what we kind of go through. I fast forward through that place in my life to now. So after doing sessions with students and knowing that I share a lot of information through the YouTube channel, as you probably know. But the thing is, people can go and fetch information, but they don't have a framework. They don't have sort of a model, a path. So I figured book would probably be the next logical step. I'm very transparent about it, and I figured, okay, let's put it in the book. So this way, even if you decide not to do 100% of it, at least everything, all the ingredients and the recipe are there. And like whatever you decide to apply AI or post editing or camera or client interaction or whatever, like go there and just follow the steps, right? So it's more about awareness. Seems like I'm getting away from the podcasting, but I'm going there. So the thing is, the book was the next thing, and the one ingredient that was missing. So very often we fall. I think we fail at recognizing that, sometimes we think we know, like we have this mental construct of how this should work. I hate the word should, but we have a mental construct of like what should take place. And before I wanted to present it to the public and get people involved and exposed, I needed to run this like model through, just, give it a test, connect with other photographers and see what's out there, whether what I'm thinking and trying to present and show is there's no one right method, depending on kind of where you are. That's a separate subject, like, knowing where you are in life and how you want to apply, how you want to use photography as a tool in your life. And the thing is, I needed to connect with other photographers to see exactly what they're doing, just to see what's out there. That was reason number one. So it was to support the book because I do have the mentions of the photographers, including yourself.
Thank you.
The acknowledgement in the book. So that's pretty cool. And then the thing is, the second reason is the unknown unknowns. Again, maybe there are things out there that I have no clue existed. And guess what? There are. So it was additional like learning. I always think of it as like, in the podcast, I'm in a different setting. Here, I'm just running my mouth right now. But like, I think of it more in the ratio of how God sort of sees us, two ears, one mouth, use it in that ratio. So I learn when I listen, not when I talk. In podcast environment, it gave me an opportunity to just like learn even more, right? And apply that knowledge. And then another thing was, I know a lot of folks that I deal with is they deal with this, you already mentioned that with pricing, like depending on who you use as your reference group, the 5 individuals you surround yourself with, depending on the environment where you live or where you're born, we do have this sort of when you come across a photographer, I remember you had Peter Hurley on your show recently, I think, but I saw an interview with Peter, and the first thing I when I watched you, you had this like, oh my god, like I can't believe you're here, holy crap, like it's just because you have him somewhere on the pedestal, and by the way, rightfully so. But what I'm saying is your perception of somebody there is like, my god, this is, where's the pixie dust that you put over somebody to make him this, right? And I figured if I have the photographers in, and I got to tell you, one of the Eric Clausen had a just unbelievable impact on what I did with weddings and when I took my photography game. When he told me he's going to interview with me, I cried, like in the car. I'm like, I just couldn't believe it, because this icon wants to talk to me. We all have those like idols in our world, but but again, and when Eric showed up, he's like, I don't think I have any impact. I mean, he was just Eric, right? And we had a phenomenal conversation about photography and life. But the thing is, for folks, it was like, I wanted to contribute to the photography from the angle of like, hey guys, like all these other guys are just regular people. They're approachable. That's why when you watch the podcast, like I have the sequence in the way in which I ask questions, because I want to talk about failures. I want to talk about their businesses. I want to talk about how did they start? What were they afraid of? Like, what are they charging? Why? And, so we talk about pretty much, it's like a condensed, encapsulated story for the guests. But, we did it with you, and I want to understand. I'm curious, just as a person, human to human interaction. I just wanted to like know, and, so you not only learn photography, but like you can relate as they tell stories where they came from. Like when you told me your story, I was like, holy crap, like he's just a regular dude, mind blowing, but like, so am I.
Yeah.
So for me, it was this, and I think because of where I am in life, it's just, I'm trying to slow down, and it's trying to like take it in, but also give back at the same time. And I thought that would be just a good way to do it. I know that's a long answer, but
no, it's fascinating, and I think what, it's as you said, and I agree on so many points you just mentioned, that it's not just interviewing people, but like learning and seeing their perspective, and then kind of like as you said, like you put this sprinkle dust on them, like you have this like own imagination about who they are. And then like with the Peter Hurley, I was also like, I want to kind of come back to this, because I work on this interview for years, right? Because I approached him a few times, and then he was always busy, and I think I don't know, but like I couldn't kind of get him through. And at some point he's like, let's do that, right? But also like what I want to add to this, which is also fascinating, which is extremely, I don't know, like I could understand that at the beginning, that people are just so willing to share their knowledge, right? Because I remember when I actually got into the podcast, one of the first one was Dylan Patrick, and he was like, this amazing headshot photographer. And I remember I like started doing this podcast, and he was one of my first guests, and I was like, like how I can kind of approach this podcast, so I'm not gonna just like try to make him see me like I'm trying to get all the information from him. But then he started like sharing all this stuff, like out of the blue, like whatever he was doing, like the gear, the settings, how he approaches, and I'm just like, dude, you just like sharing like all the secrets, right? Like are you wanting me to publish this? And then he actually, remember, he had like the course at the same time, right? And he just like spill everything what is in that course, for this like couple hours we talk about it. But that also shows how the times change too, right? It's not like a big secret anymore. Sharing informations nowadays, it's something that we all do, and it's kind of part of the journey. What are you going to do with this? It's up to you, but it's out there. You can take it, you can use it, and then see how this whole thing works. And also, like, that's how I built my kind of like career with photography, by sharing the knowledge. And then a
Mhm.
lot of people were like kind of shocked. But also, like, I want to touch one thing. I actually had this conversation the other day with my friend from Poland. And I don't know how much you involve with Polish community of photographers. And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to, like, backlashing them or anything like that. But I found like they were way more harsh on you. Like, here in States and Canada, people are like much nicer, and they, like,
Yeah.
ask questions and this. And as soon as I post something in Poland, Polish kind of, groups or something, they're like like stabbing me from every possible corner. And I'm like, oh my god, like, you guys just come down, right?
Yeah, a
So,
lot of it is
and I
social
don't
status.
yeah, yeah. Oh, perfect.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, we touched the podcast. Now I want to go to the main topic. It's been an hour already, so I hope you have a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's go. I don't
yeah,
care.
let's do it.
Yeah,
I want to jump into the topic of AI.
sure.
Y- and the main reason I want to talk about it, because it seems like for the last couple years, AI has a massive kind of impact on photography. There's this whole technology is like literally, it's a revolution in photography. And also, what I've learned, there's like two opposite sides. People who are for, they're like approving this, they're okay with that. There are people who are completely against that. I know there's a lot of fear behind it. People kind of confuse where this is going, how this whole thing is going to impact. What do we do? I have my own opinions on this, but I want to kind of pick up your brain a little bit. How you even see it. AI at this point, like where we are right now. Also, like, probably this conversation year from now is going to be relevant, because it's going to be completely different world we're going to be living in. But let's kind of open that Pandora box a little bit, and then let's talk about it. So what's your kind of like general approach to AI, and how you kind of sees this whole technology revolution in our industry?
I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off listening to
Okay,
this.
that's good.
But true. Good for views.
Exactly.
But but I gotta tell you, I I love it.
Yeah.
Um, to expand on that, I because most of the time when I hear this whole AI spiel, it
Mhm.
comes from one angle only. Like in your case, you're a perfect case for this because it's like, will it take jobs away from headshot photographers, right? Like,
Mhm.
uh, I always laugh. My response to this question, by
Mhm.
the way, it's always like you should probably worry about whether you're going to have enough of people to photograph from the corporate world because AI
Yeah,
will probably take over there first.
their jobs. Yeah.
But I don't think the impact to the actual photographer will be as much. But the thing is, I don't want to focus on this. To me, AI is a broader topic.
Hmm.
And when I talk to somebody, another photographer, see, the thing is, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the term photographer anymore as much
Hmm.
because it's really a business owner.
Yeah.
When we say photographer, everybody focuses on the visual aspect and the photography, the camera, the editing, the post editing immediately after that, like with what is it, after shoot or imagine or
Mhm.
you name it. There's a tool. I know you spent with Yannick talking about what is it, Avado or and
Yeah.
so there's enough of controversies around like tools and what's going to happen there. For me, AI is everything. It's
Mhm.
lead nurturing, capturing leads. It's the automation process it's basically offloading you. So you could be photographer and not necessarily
Yeah.
business owner. For me, AI is part of when it's injected properly within your business, it helps you build an asset, which not a lot of photographers talk about because they just want to shoot and sell, shoot and sell. I look at photography business as something where you create an asset, then you step away. The asset can still perform. The
Yeah.
asset can be sold. It's there's more to it. I look at AI as like content creation, brand
Mhm.
creation, replicating your voice, right? I look at it as like with the book, you used to have to hire like 6 different people to write your
Yeah.
book. And I'm not a writer. I work with AI, and it's structured in a way so that it performs like a writer, a copy line editor, a fact
Mhm.
checker. I mean, checks the storylines. It does everything, right? So it's like you can see it's injected kind of everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I was just on the photo biz X with Andrew Helmich, talking about how to build a custom chat GPT for like photography business so that you can
Mhm.
prime it so that when you create content, you don't really have to spend a lot of time when you're creating reels, when you're creating content, when you're creating blog posts, when you're, whatever. So
Yeah.
how do you create that so that it's you use it as a leverage, you use it as a benefit, right? The
Mhm.
world will change, the AI will impact it. It's just a question of how do you adapt. And here's the nice thing, if I have to inject it from another angle too, it's like you can actually use AI. You can go after, let's say, 4 business owners that you admire that are within the photography world, and you can capture their voice, right? With
Yeah.
tools like Menace, when it's actually going out there as an agent and like searching, collecting information for you. You can build personas of different photography business folks out there and create almost a forum for yourself, so that if you do have questions, you can go to AI and it can serve like 4 different advisors telling you, how to sort of shift your journey. So
Mhm.
there's just so many things. Conversational AI, there's, I've already mentioned voice conversions, business strategies, handling testimonials, handling delivery. Like, I really see it all over the place. I got to tell you, we could probably spend 2 hours just talking about AI,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know I
Mhm.
dedicated one chapter in the book to AI,
Mhm.
and everything I talk about and more will probably be there.
Absolutely. No, that's you know what, I 100% agree. And I think one of the biggest points you made, which is interesting for me, and like the fact is, it's not just photography, right? Like you can use AI in all sorts of different other elements of your business, of your career, of your branding, and all this stuff. Helping. Like for me, AI is like, as you said, it's like a kind of assistant,
Mhm.
which helps me to navigate through so many different interesting things. And the application is like endless, right?
Mhm.
And it's every day is changing. There's new stuff. But also, like, I think that it's gonna take time till we can really train AI, because like I've done like a my chat GP, well, not like a GPT for headshot photography,
Yeah.
and was wrong on all sorts of kind of ways, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people who are expert in specific kind of like genres of
Mhm.
photography, they
Yeah.
can really create something which can help other people develop what they do through their eyes, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of fascinating. Perfect. You know what, yeah, why don't we kind of do another podcast in a while about AI completely,
Sure.
because as you said, it's a really deep topic. And I remember, even like a while ago, I had this conference, photography conference, what I was speaking at, and
Mhm.
I started kind of like pointing out some of the stuff where we can use AI in headshot photography.
Yeah.
And you could see, like, everyone turn white on their faces, like they like got so
Yeah.
terrified. But like a lot of people expect, like, okay, the AI is going to do headshots, but it's not that, right? Like they can lead you, they can help you, they can really navigate you to get to your proper client, or people you want to work with. So
Yeah.
it's not just the photography in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's summarize this whole thing. And I have a couple kind of questions.
Mhm.
So what would be your advice to people who try and get into, and let's kind of like stay away from, as you said, like I also agree with this 100%, that it's not just photography, but getting into this visual industry, like what would you tell to people who, I think that's the future, by the way, like that's
Mhm.
how, like that's going to be a huge market. And then I think there will be a lot of opportunities to do not only good money, but do like amazing careers. What would you tell to those people who would like to kind of dive in and start their careers in that industry?
In photography, you mean?
Um, well, not exactly photography, but what I mean is like more
Across genres?
cross genres, like
Yeah.
visuals, photography, branding,
Yeah.
all this like stuff which are related to photography. Because photography is just taking pictures.
Yeah.
But I think right now we're living in a world where we can create images not only through photography. Like we can use AI, we can use all sorts of different tools to combine those. Even photography with AI, there's all sorts of things. We can mix all those tools together to follow that kind of visual creations.
Yeah. I'm I'm it sounds like it could be a long answer, but
Go for it.
I'm
Go
gonna
for
try.
it. I want to hear your opinion, because it seems like you look at this from much broader perspective.
Yeah.
And then it's not just the kind of taking images. It's the business. You're looking at this from very, very wide spectrum, right? So I would like to really kind of
Correct.
hear your opinion. Yeah.
Correct. And I needed to step back from photography and just look at the broader picture. And this is, we're not going to get philosophical, but like it's worth asking why you want to even do this business, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of folks, there's actually, for those of you that like to read, I think there's a book called The Company of One. I remember reading it and I was like, I was blown away because I'm like, oh, because everybody, we already mentioned like copying the logo, copying the website, copying the prices, copying the packages, right? But like, and by that, you also copy the model. Like everybody just go hard and like as much as possible. Like you don't have to do that. You just kind of, like think about where you are. And I always do it backwards. I say, how much money out of this do I need? Because in the end, I think most people are lying. It is about money, not about art as much. And like in the end, yes, the prestige and all that, being good at photography, money will follow. But most folks are chasing the income. Mm-hmm. And the thing, and this is my opinion, it's not a generic truth. So just step back if you're boiling right now. But the thing is, if you're chasing money, like figure out how much money you need. If it's 50,000, 100,000, or whatever, and then look at it as like, oh, okay, so let's say I need, because it will be a different answer. If you need 5K for your family vacation every year, then maybe do mini sessions. They're easy. Go out there, shoot, maybe product, maybe animals, maybe families, maybe whatever. Like, no issue. If you need 50K, well, now we're talking different game. You can't be doing family sessions, 526 family sessions. So start there, figure out like which genre of photography. With weddings, you can charge 5,000 per gig, right? If you do 20, you have 100K there. Yeah. So maybe you need to overcome this whole, like what Rafał said at the beginning, trauma of, oh my God, what am I doing? Remember, fear is always in the vagueness, in the unknown. Once you look at it closer, you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Like, and weddings are kind of the same way. Every genre. I look at Rafał doing his work. I'm like, how the hell does he do? It just seems so big, which leads me into another point. The second point is because of this indoctrination in school, a lot of times we're being told what to do. And when you're stepping into the business, just in general, any business, whether you have a bake shop, sell, lemonade from a stand in front of the garage, or like you have to, there's no prepackaged thing where you come in and applies exactly to you and where you are and who you are and your likes, dislikes. You kind of have to understand, like, there's people say it's failure, and it's not failure, it's just trying, right? Mm-hmm. So when I learned how to ride a bike, first day, I didn't just get on the bike and there I went. It was a lot of failures, and I probably cried enough, and I probably fell enough of times. Like, this is what business is like. Just please know that it's not like you're just going to go out there and be perfect on day one. Plus perfect doesn't exist, and you'll learn it with time. But the thing is, the main point is, people don't know how to work. So they choose this goal of, okay, I want to build this business to 60K. And it seems so big that they get overwhelmed. So they just start doing busy work. All right, I'm just going to spend 2 weeks on my logo. Like, is your logo going to pay you money? No. So it's probably not the number one thing you need to focus on. I'm going to create a beautiful website for $3,000. Like, Okay, let's pretend you did your website. Where is the traffic going to come from? It's not automatically going to show up there. So it's like people don't understand that. So focus on the things that will bring you money. Maybe you can take your phone and send a message to your friends or your friends' friends and say, listen, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to become a photographer, just starting. I'm going to offer this. And don't ask them directly. Don't put anybody on the spot, right? Just ask the indirect question. Just say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Do you know anybody that's interested, that could potentially be interested? Do the same thing on your Facebook. Do the same thing on your Instagram. Do the same thing on your phone. I guarantee you're going to get a client. At least get enough clients to build a portfolio, right? Because the thing with when you're asking somebody, they probably know somebody that does. Plus, they usually, what's the first instinct? It's like, I know somebody, but like, I want to do it too. So that's the second thing. And then whenever another thing that I see people struggle with is like they wait for the perfect moment to start. They call it motivation. And I don't think motivation exists. It's like the perfect moment to start is the moment when you start, because that's when you get into work. The first 5 minutes, it's like moving a standing car, right? Like it's just the hardest to get going. But 5-10 minutes into it, you enter something that we call a flow state, which is like, very often you start doing something, somebody interrupts you, you're almost annoyed. Like, don't, because I'm in the middle. Like, and that's where we get with our head. So like, just understand that exists. You have to, even though you don't feel like starting, just go and do a little bit. Just like 5 minutes, right? It's like losing weight. I shouldn't be talking about losing weight, looking at me, but it's basically that, like 5 minutes of the activity, right? And then maybe push it to 10 minutes and then maybe half an hour. But a lot of people work in blocks.
If I can recommend, there's an amazing book, Atomic Habits.
Yes.
I think talks about exactly about it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have it. Yeah,
I don't know. It's somewhere over here. But that's really what it is. So look at techniques like Pomodoro technique, when you can work for 25 minutes and rest for 5, and then another 25 and 5 again. Look at things like monk mode, where you actually take your calendar and schedule working sessions, your planning sessions, your rest sessions, because this is really how we should be working. We should be going like maniacs for 3 months straight, and then
you're gonna burn yourself. Yeah.
There you go. You said it. And so just make sure that you have enough time to work and plan and rest, so that your wife doesn't complain, so the kids are taken care of, right? So, I mean, you need time for yourself. And always understand, it's not going to happen next week. So always have something, when I was building a YouTube channel, look at your inputs, not at your outcome. What I mean by that is a lot of people, come in, it's like losing weight thing, but like you step on a scale, like, did I lose it? Oh, maybe like quarter pound, right, today. And it adds up, but it adds up, like you have to think of it in terms of 10 months, not 2 weeks or a month, right? And the same thing with business, like it will be there. I guarantee with the YouTube channel, same thing. I know nothing about YouTube. I'm not a YouTuber, same way as I was saying, I'm not a photographer. But basically, you look at it as like, I'm going to devote an hour to building my business every day, Monday through Friday, 1 hour, right? Or it could be 3 hours during a week, maybe 2 hours on a weekend. Look at the inputs and just repeat. Same thing, right? Everybody hears about consistency all the time. Let me tell you, that's the pixie dust we were talking about earlier. Yeah. And once you know how to go, focus on one thing at a time. Like a lot of times when you enter this game, it's like shiny object syndrome, right? You look at one photographer, you look at Rafał, like after I had a podcast interview with you, I'm like, oh, this headshot photography sounds pretty good. Maybe you feel good about it because you're in the space of the right energy and like, but my brain already knows pretty good that there are nuances. There's a lot of learning behind every single one. And, when you do weddings, it's like, those headshot photographers, they have it easy, right? Like, whatever Rafa was thinking about, I mean, kudos to you that you said wedding photography is not complicated. It's just like a lot of work, but I think there's a lot of work with what you're doing, and you probably just feel comfortable with it at this point. So, but the learning curve is still there for somebody entering. So it's gonna be painful, dude. Like, buckle up because there's work. And the same thing with, I look at guys that are doing like product photography, right? I was actually looking for one, and fortunately, I found like a really good one. I'm gonna have him on the podcast, but it's like, well, product guys might have it easy because there's like no people, no animals, no nothing, right? But like, I'm sure there's like another learning curve to product photography.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, stay with that one thing. If you can master this thing, great. When you create your fantastic website with your fantastic logo, maybe just advertise one fantastic thing, because when people come, they don't want to come to a Walmart of photography having everything available. People like to come to a specialist that specializes in one thing. You can have multiple websites, but or landing pages, even better. But just make sure that that's in place. Start simple. Go out there, ask a question, make some money, pause, reflect, relax, plan, move forward.
Do it again.
Yeah, it's remember, people think of it as repetitions. It's not repetitions. Repetition is doing the same thing without changing anything. It's more about iterations. You do it, you check, you evaluate, you're like, I'm going to move it this way and this way and this way. And I guarantee you, in like 3-4 months, you're not going to believe what's in front of you, because consistency, it builds. It's like moving bricks, right? From one place to another. Like, even if you move 2 or 3 bricks every day, in 3 months, there's going to be a different pile, right? On the side.
Yeah. I heard this kind of amazing analogy about what you say from Simon Sinek. I'm sure you know this guy. I think he has this like few amazing books. One of them, which probably you've heard about, is Start With Why. And he says about because a lot of us, not a lot of us, but a lot of people, especially the young generations, they always looking for this, overnight success. And he was comparing this to brushing the teeth, right? If you brush your teeth like once a month, they're gonna get rotten. But if you do it even for 2 minutes every day for like years, you're gonna be way better off, right? And it's kind of stuck to my head because as you said, consistency in our industry is everything, right? And I agree also what you said, which is one of the things which a lot of people forget is whatever you do, try to always improve it, right? Try something new, fail, not fail, success, not success, but keep trying to new things and then improving what you do, and then eventually within the time you will see massive shift and massive progress. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up because we've been like in 90 minutes. We were planning for an hour. I think we could go for another couple hours, but let's keep that conversation open, and then I would love to have you back on the podcast within the next several months if you're free. I know you're super busy, you've got a lot of stuff going on and too. So but yeah, thank you so much for not only accepting my invitation but also sharing all your knowledge, and I'm going to add all your links, everything what is going on. We're going to talk up after when we finish, whatever you want to kind of push it forward. I'll be more than happy to implement that into this podcast so people can check everything what you do. It seems like there's tons. So, and I want to highly recommend your podcast to all my viewers. Check it out. There's a lot of amazing guests, deep conversations, and then you guys can learn a lot from it. So take your time and spend some some time on going through some of those interviews because they're extremely valuable.
Very cool. Rafał, thanks for sharing your audience. I hope it was valuable for somebody, or at least piece of it. I know we've covered a lot. But this is super cool, and I got to tell you, whenever talking to you, it's super comfortable. You're a very approachable dude, which I appreciate, and you always have very kind of interesting angles on different topics. I know we can go on and on. Man, we did almost 2 hours there. Now we've done another hour and a half, and I feel like I can probably squeeze in 2 hours at least right after this.
Yeah, I feel like we just touch stuff. That's the problem. We cannot even go deep into some of those things because there's so much. But anyways, I think we're gonna continue this, and then I want to see the feedback. What people want to here too. But I think,
Absolutely.
whoever got to this point, thank you so much for listening. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope that you get something valuable out of this. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Marcin, for joining the podcast.
Thank you.